Good afternoon and welcome to the thorough newspaper analysis for 23rd March 2022. Today we are going to talk about an article which has been taken from the Hindu editorial, which is titled as Needed an Indian Legislative Service and has been authored by Vinod Bhanu, who is also the director and director of Center for Legislative Research and Advocacy in New Delhi. Following that, as you know, we will have the news update and the legal news, which are a part of LawSikho's initiative to keep its readers and students updated with the current affairs happening in and around India. So, for the first article, we have Indian Legislative Service and why it is needed in our country. Now, Indian Legislative Service could be designed based on the model that we have for Indian Administrative Service or Indian Engineering Service or Indian Foreign Service. So, it could be that India could create a ILS to develop cadres so that they could be recruited into bodies which are run by the state or the center and which are associated with the formation of laws. This is because a common service can help strengthen the many legislative bodies in India, and they range from the panchayat level to the union parliament. Now, we are aware that the legislature is independent of the executive, and Article 98 of the Indian Constitution provides the scope for separate secretariats for the two houses of parliament. The Secretary General has a rank which is equivalent to the Cabinet Secretary and is a third key functionary in the Rajya Sabha. He also enjoys criminal immunity and immunity from arrest, and any breach of his rights is a contempt of the House. So, what happens is that civil servants are hired for the posts of Secretary General. Now, these civil servants may be people who are currently serving, or they may be individuals who have retired and are brought back to serve as in the position of the Secretary General. But what happens is that any civil servant who's being brought into to occupy such a position do have their own baggage, and this practice dishonors the independence which has been imagined for the body, and it also creates conflict of interests. Further, it also breaches the principle of separation of power, and we know that a strong parliament is very necessary because this means that the executive will be more answerable to the people. And somehow the bureaucracy reigning in our country has constantly undermined this. There are thousands of mammoth lawmaking bodies in India. If we take into consideration the municipalities, the block level, the panchayat level to the union parliament, and the separate sovereign bodies in India, which are controlled by the government and yet which make their own laws, there are thousands of them, and somehow they lack their individual recruitment and training agency at the national level. Hence, creating an all India legislative cadre is a must. This will enable cadres to serve across local bodies to the parliament. And the Rajya Sabha can pass a resolution on the same under Article 312, which will then enable the parliament to create such a service by law. And this practice has precedence in the United Kingdom, where the clerk for the House of the Commons has always been appointed from a legislative staff pool. Next up, we have the news updates. For the first news update today, we have Delhi as the most polluted capital in the world for the fourth consecutive year. In a report on air quality being compiled by IQ Air, which is a Swiss firm, Delhi remains the worst capital with the most polluted air for the fourth consecutive year, with a pollution increase of over 15% from the last year. Air pollution was over 20 times than whose pollution limits, and the particulate matter clocked at 96.4 micrograms per cubic meter of air. Second up, we have Shaheed Diwas, which is celebrated on 23rd March. The entire nation observes the Shaheed Diwas today to mark the death anniversary of Bhagat Singh, Shivaram Rajguru, and Sukhdev Thapar. They were hanged at the Lahore Central Jail on this day in 1931. They had plotted the murder of Superintendent of Police James Scott to avenge the death of Lala Lajpat Rai. However, due to mistaken identity, it was John Saunders who died that day, the then Assistant Superintendent of Police. Thirdly, we have Bihar Diwas. Bihar Diwas is observed every day on March 22nd, marking the formation of the state of Bihar. It was on this day when the British carved out the state from Bengal in 1912. The day is a public holiday in Bihar. Every year, the government of Bengal issues a notification declaring the 22nd March to be a public holiday to be celebrated as Bihar Day. This holiday applies to all the offices and companies under the jurisdiction of the state and central government, as well as schools celebrate this day by organizing various programs which are participated by the students. For legal news update, we have Bar under Section 362 of CrPC is not absolute, and the court has inherent jurisdiction to recall order for securing the ends of justice. This has been pronounced by the Orissa High Court. The Orissa High Court recently held that the provisions of bar as stated under Section 362 of CrPC were not absolute, and the same could not be strictly applied to recall of orders which are obtained by frauding the court. Secondly, we have Sensodyne fined for misleading advertisement. The Central Consumer Protection Authority has ordered Sensodyne to discontinue the misleading advertisement within 7 days and has also imposed a fine of rupees 10 lakhs. An official release made on Tuesday stated that the claims made by Sensodyne as the world's most recommended toothpaste by dentists and world's #1 sensitivity toothpaste are false and misleading. So this was all for today. You can get the free study materials and TNA PDF slides by joining our Telegram channel by scanning this QR code. You can also follow us on Instagram by following these Instagram handles. And for further information, you can visit www.lawsikho.com. Thank you.